and enjoy.
Okay, thank you very much. Can everyone hear me? All right. Well, I'm going to say in advance, my job is entirely in Dutch, so maybe I'll be a bit rusty on some jargon, but I'll try to do my best to explain everything in English. So first, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Maria Scholten. I'm a senior consultant in the heat transition and also part of the management team at Atriensis wijken. I started psychology and technology here at this university in 2014. I was a member of ESC and We Know You Know, which you may know. And I graduated Innovation Sciences in 2020. And since then, I've been working at Atriensis. So what did I look for when I first started looking for a job? I wanted to do something that was social. I wanted to have some involvement in the community. I wanted to do something with sustainability, but I didn't know exactly what. Of course, I was looking for opportunities for personal development, and I wanted a challenge and responsibility. So these were, well, the things I was looking for, and then I started looking on LinkedIn and started to search everywhere, started to go to career markets at the university. And then I met Suzanne, who's here, and she recruited me to work at Atriensis, which is, well, nearly 5 years ago already. Yeah, and now today I want to tell you something about what we do and the challenges that we face. But first, I want to know what you guys are looking for in your first job. So you can scan this QR code, and then we'll see a nice word cloud of what you find important. So please feel free, be honest, anything you can think of. Yeah, money, okay. Very honest, very good. It's very important, for sure. Nice, very nice things. Yeah, freedom, opportunities to grow, a healthy work environment, nice colleagues, projects, creativity. Yeah, I think this is, well, I mean, that's also what we really think is very important when you work at Atriensis. We think we want to encourage people to really, yeah, get this big responsibility, have impact. We have a really nice team. Actually, my team is, well, I'm the oldest and I'm 29. So, well, most of them are also from TUE and they're much younger. So we have a really nice and vibrant team. Also because what we do is quite new. So yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about Atriensis and what we do. So we are a consultancy company for social housing corporations. We have 3 locations, Zwolle, Amstelveen and Eindhoven. And we work with approximately 120 colleagues. We also focus on different areas. So I presume most of you are from building sciences. But we have people from many different backgrounds. But what we used to do is mostly engineering advice for more sustainable homes. So a lot of people with your background are still working at a part of our company where we make plans on how to improve homes and how to make them more sustainable, to really make them, well, make them worthwhile for the long term. We also have a part of our company that makes energy labels, which you definitely also know, I think. And then we have this new part of our company, like subsidy consulting. I don't know if you know Stan Megens, he was in GEOPS. He works on our subsidy team. We also have consultants about communication and participation. And then consultancy in the heat transition. And that's what I do and what my team does. So that's what I'll be focusing on today. So what is the heat transition? Have any of you have you heard of this transition? Do you know that we want to take our neighborhoods off natural gas? If so, yes. Do you? Yeah, I think yeah, most of you have heard about it probably, right? That we need to end the use of natural gas. So we need to find an alternative way for cooking, heating our homes, and for heating tap water. So it's a real sustainability transition. So there are several alternatives on how we can actually achieve this. For example, you can use heat networks or district heating, as it's called. There are heat pumps, which can be either all electric or hybrid, where they still use a bit of natural gas. And there's also green gas or maybe even hydrogen. That's a big discussion that's always going on. Hydrogen is an alternative that we list, but that will probably mostly be used in industry. So the most important alternatives for heating your home will probably be heat networks and heat pumps. But maybe there will be more. I studied innovation sciences, so I'm very hopeful that we will think of new innovations that will give us more opportunities to make this transition maybe a bit easier. But the goal is that in 2050, all homes in the Netherlands must be natural gas free. And on the one hand, that sounds like it's still quite a long time, that we still have quite a long time to go. But in fact, 25 years is actually not that long if we now see how long these processes take to actually achieve this. So we are a consultant for social housing corporations. Do you guys know which percentage of homes in the Netherlands is owned by such corporations? What do you think? I don't see any answers yet. Don't be scared to answer. I didn't know this before I was working at Atriensis. Yeah? Oh, it's not showing. Oh, that's where. Oh, sorry, that's my mistake. Okay, yeah, you're right. So most of you say 30%. Also, quite a lot of you say 40, 20. Well, I'm very proud of you because it's 30%, which is actually a lot, I would say. So 1 in 3 homes nearly is owned by a social housing corporation. So what is this? A social housing corporation? They're our clients. And I don't know if maybe some of you rent from Vestida or Woonbedrijf. That's an example of a social housing corporation. So it's this big organization that provides homes to the most vulnerable people in the Netherlands, and that's people with a low income, of course, such as students as you, but also people that are older, but that are, they don't have an income, or they have low income, they have social challenges, and these organizations are vital to actually giving all people in our society, an opportunity to live their life and have a comfortable home, which is, I would say, very important. So due to the large part that is social housing, so 1 in 3 houses, the housing corporations were appointed startmotor in Dutch, which means they're the starting engine of the heat transition. And this means that because there are some neighborhoods where, for example, even 70% of homes are social housing homes. So if you actually want to achieve something, if you have such a large scale, it's easier to achieve. So that's why they are essential partners in achieving this heat transition. And that's also why we help them. Because, well, the municipality asks them, please, can you help us in making this transition possible? But they need to, of course, do this only under the right conditions for those vulnerable people that live in these homes. So that's what we do. So they have to start now, and they have actually already started with this challenge, but they have to be ready by 2050. What we see in this transition is that everything is new. Much is uncertain. There's no blueprint. No one tells them or us what to do. So we kind of have to learn a lot, trust our guts to try and do the best for both the social housing corporations themselves, because of course they need to be financially healthy and they need to be able to continue doing what they do, but also for the people that live in those homes. It's of course very important that we negotiate a deal and a transition that is fair and that is affordable. So we have a lot of knowledge. We've been, well, nearly 10 years we've been doing projects in this field. So we know a lot, but as I said, there's no blueprint, and the laws are constantly changing and everything is just moving along every day. So we have to adapt all the time as well. So I'm not going to tell you that I have all the knowledge it takes, but we know quite a lot already. So some things that are important to focus on, that we focus on when we negotiate, for example, that a neighborhood will go off natural gas. We look at the affordability for the housing corporation and for the tenants. We look at the practical implication. Does it fit in the home? That's of course what you probably also design. Like, is it a logical way to make this? Yeah, how you're going to make this home look after? Is it sustainable? Does it adhere to government policy? What kind of policies might be coming up? Do we need to think of these when we make a deal? So yeah, I think right now we're in the phase that it's still quite difficult, but it's becoming more and more easy because we're learning every day about how we can make this possible. And then hopefully there will be some kind of blueprint at some point, and then it will go faster. I actually hope my video works. I didn't test it. That's very unwise of me, but let's see. It doesn't, of course.
What is district heating? Currently in the UK, the most popular heating system is an individual gas boiler. However, this is not the most efficient method. District heating is the concept of one large central boiler instead of many individual boilers. There are many heat source options for the energy centre, such as gas combined heat and power, energy from waste, or renewable energy sources like heat pumps, biomass and anaerobic digestion. The hot water travels through an underground insulated pipe network to a heat interface unit located in each building. This provides the same individual heating and hot water control as a traditional boiler. Each house still has the ability to individually control their own temperature requirements. The heat energy from the district heating network provides the building's heating via either radiators or underfloor heating. The cooled water then goes back to the central boiler to be reheated and circulated again.
So this is, of course, a video from the UK, but the principle is the same in the Netherlands. And we see that this is something we actually consult on a lot currently, because heat pumps provide quite low temperatures in homes. And homes that aren't insulated well enough are, usually it doesn't work to heat them using a heat pump. And district heating provides temperatures that are a bit higher, which makes it possible to heat already, the homes that might be from the 1930s, 40s, 50s and up, to actually get them nice and comfortable using the sources, the heat source that is nearby. So yeah, that's why it's usually, this is the more technically feasible alternative that we work with a lot right now. But there are, of course, reasons, or in some areas it's very feasible, in others it's not. And it has to do with whether there's a high percentage of social housing corporation homes in a neighborhood. Is it compact? Because if the houses are very far apart, you have to use a lot of pipes in the ground, and a pipe is expensive. So if it's more compact, it becomes more affordable to actually install this. If the buildings are more high-rise, again, you have to use less pipes, so it becomes a bit cheaper. Also, what we see is if the social housing corporation has plans for doing a renovation, then we can sometimes combine these plans. So then at once the house improves, the insulation is better, they get better windows, they go to electric cooking, and then at the same time we install a district heating network. But this is a really, really big infrastructural project, so it takes years to make these plans, to negotiate this. And lastly, it only works if there's actually a heat source nearby. And a heat source can sometimes be a natural gas, which sounds strange, but once you start, sometimes you start with natural gas, but you have to have this perspective on what kind of source you will use in the future that is actually sustainable. Because in the end, we need to get off natural gas. Yeah, and our role in this is to be on the side of the social housing corporations and make sure that they only make this switch, make this transition under the right condition for the company itself, the corporation, and for its tenants. And that's where you come in with affordability and all those kinds of aspects again. So my team works from Eindhoven, but we work across the country. So our projects are really everywhere. And that's really fun because we see a lot of different contexts. We see large cities, we see more smaller towns, and different solutions, different heat sources, different types of tenants. And that makes it really, really interesting and very versatile. And also some projects are sometimes already a bit further along, which they need different advice from you if they're already further along, or whether they're still investigating whether it could be a possibility for them. So the playing field that we are in is quite difficult because there are many different stakeholders. You have these corporations themselves, you have the tenants, but then you also have the grid operator. I don't know, in Brabant it's Enexis or Liander, Stedin, those types of companies. And then the municipality. So here it would be the gemeente Eindhoven. And they are really important players in this because the municipality is the one that's actually in charge of this transition. So the municipality is the one that needs to get this going, but they only can do it with the help of the social housing corporations. That being said, municipality is also a political place. So what you see in our job is that there's also a clear influence from politics. So for example, if we are negotiating a deal or making plans for something, and there's elections, then that might change. Might change what the outcome is. That might change if they still want to pursue it or if they want to stop. And that's also what makes it a very dynamic working environment, because these politics directly influence what we can make possible. So yeah, it's a fast and changing work field, and flexibility is a must. So if you have a current cabinet with Geert Wilders, that's not the most progressive person in terms of sustainability. So yeah, that's something that we also feel. We see that there are no extra things being done to make this, to make the speed, make it go faster. That's kind of what we see. And if there's, of course, someone in charge who really cares about this, who has it's high priority, then that will also change how we can do our work. You also need to have a very broad knowledge to do this job. And don't worry, if you would ever like to work at Atriensis, you don't have to have that once you start at our company. But it is something that, that you will learn. So you will both need to know something about the technical side of it. So how does district heating work? How do heat pumps work? What do you have to think about in homes? What's important? Insulation, those kinds of things. But you also need to be interested in process management. So actually moving the process along and making it possible. You need to understand the financial side of it, and also even some legal stuff is involved, because in the end you will come to a contract where you have to sign, and then we of course have to be able to tell our client if it's a good contract or not. And we do work with lawyers for this, but it's good if you understand a bit about it. But what we find most important, we also say it's never really about which exact study you did here at TUE or even another university. It's mostly about, do you have the social skills, the ambition and the guts to do this job? Because it can be really, really challenging, but also really fun because of that. So what are the elements of this district heating project? So I said there are a lot of stakeholders. You have the heat source, you have the neighborhood, different homes in the neighborhood, and everything has to align for it to actually be realized. So that's why it can really take some years to really get to the point where you can realize the plans that you made. And there are also different project phases, where you first, of course, sometimes we are already involved in the feasibility phase. So when they're actually still looking if it's possible to make the transition already, and that can depend on many factors. And once you have decided, okay, we think it is feasible, you can move on to the design phase, where you will design, make the actual plan, both inside the home and also out in the streets, because all the streets will need to be torn apart to put some pipes in. So once you put the streets back, it might be nice to make them a bit greener and nicer. You have to form contracts, as I already said. Then you have to do some engineering, and after the engineering, it can actually be implemented. So yeah, it's a lot of different steps that we are involved in. And even after implementation, once it's actually running during operation, we are always also still involved, where we see what we can learn, how we can improve in that specific project, but also across all the other projects. And that's nice about being a consultant, I think, is that you work in different projects at the same time, and also projects that are in different phases. So if you see something from one project, you can immediately use it in the other project. And that's why you can really learn very quickly. So what are career paths at Atriensis? So if you've studied architecture or any type of bouwkunde really, or even vastgoed en makelaardij at the Fontes, then you can become a project advisor for improving the sustainability of homes. So that's really on the level of the home, on the building level. You can come work in my team as a consultant in the heat transition, and you can also graduate at Atriensis. We are also very open for that. So if you ever have questions about that, please feel free to ask. And if you studied something else, I think this is mostly people from GEOP. So, but to be complete, people from innovation sciences, industrial engineering, other studies, public administration, they can also come work in my team, because we have a very broad set of knowledge that we can use. And also graduation project is possible. And then we also have communication people. So we also have people that are specialists in communication and participation. So if you studied something that has to do with that, or you're just interested in it, you want to move to that area, then that's also possible. Because in the end, I think all of you, well, you said, okay, we're familiar with this transition, but I think the difficulty is mainly to actually get people to start moving and really do something about it. Because right now we're talking a lot about it, but actually making this change is still, not that far along. And we need to really convince people that that's where we need to go. So that was my talk. This is us again. So feel free to contact us if you have any questions. And do you have any questions right now? Yeah. 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 So our job, because we usually work for the social housing corporations, we look at mostly what kind of incentives can we give to the tenants. So what we find is really important is for people to feel heard. That's step one, I think, because people might have concerns. They're worried about what this change means and what it will do to their, usually financial concerns, but also maybe what will change in their home. Because even though they rent the home, it really feels for them like, this is my home and you want to touch it, so tell me what you want to do with it. And then what we do is we organize a lot of sessions where we actually invite them to give their opinions. They might choose how we do it, or they can choose the color of their front door, or we include them also in the whole process. And also we ask them about their concerns that might not have to do with this transition, but just anything. And then sometimes we can actually implement those worries in the plan. So for example, we had this building where it turned out that people were quite worried about the fire safety. And we only had a plan on how to make it more sustainable, but not, and also how to make the transition, but not on fire safety. So now, because they told us this, we created an extra stairway from where they can go down. And then people really feel heard and seen, and their concerns are addressed. And I think that helps a lot if you feel that people are not very willing to move along. And usually, my experience is that it's usually not really about the transition itself. It's usually more they're old, or they're worried about their money, they're worried that they might get cold, they might go on vacation when you want to come by. You know, it's very small things, but if you really listen, then you can usually address them. Yeah. Definitely, yeah, and it's also just very social. I would say the whole job is it's also just about people and how people interact as a tenant, but also in project teams, yeah. Any other questions? Yeah?
You said about one of the examples for district heating, but if that was implemented in the neighborhood, do you think that it will be hard to implement new construction with it, because the new construction would then have to be connected to the same system, which needs excavation again, and all of those connections to happen brand new?
Yeah, so that's a good question for sure. I think with new constructions, that's always kind of a difficult type of question, because they're usually they're new, right? So they're very well insulated. They have the newest ventilation system. Everything is very well up to the current standards. And district heating, in that sense, it provides heating, but traditionally it doesn't provide cooling. And in these type of buildings, you usually also need to be able to cool, because otherwise it gets way too hot during the summer. So we always look for kind of sometimes a hybrid system, or they get their own smaller system. If it's like a really big high-rise building, then sometimes they just get their own like smaller heat pump system, because that's more feasible. But what I do see is that sometimes you have neighborhoods over here where there's district heating, and a neighborhood over here, and then in the middle there's a new houses being built. But these two both need to be in district heating. Then, because it's very strategic in terms of where it's lying, you do actually connect this to the district heating network. Because otherwise it becomes too expensive to have this pipe run through a neighborhood that doesn't use any of the network. So in these kind of neighborhoods, we do try to really think of how we are going to connect. But I think in the whole transition, not every neighborhood will go on a district heating network. It's projected it will be about 30%, so it's usually the big cities. And there are also a lot of other solutions that will be more fitting for new types of buildings, usually. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Yeah? Okay, good. Any other? No?
If not, then I would like to thank you all for being here. Upstairs, you can scan your campus card. If you don't have your campus card with you, you just have to tell them your student number, and we can give you my future points. I want to thank you for giving the lunch lecture. I have for you a little gift.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. And feel free to always contact us.